Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya Meyer, and I'm the founder of Mindful ELT. And I'm here today with Miriam Bekkouche. She is the founder and CEO of the Brain Spa. Link below, so make sure you check that out. And the Brain Spa brings mindfulness training to companies. Miriam lives in Montreal in Canada, and she's also given a TED talk on the topic of mindfulness. So please also check that link below. So thank you very much for being here today, Miriam.
Thank you, Tanya. It's such an honor, really.
Thank you. So let's start by just asking you a little bit about your project, your company, the Brain Spa. So tell me a little bit more about it, please.
It's been a real gift to be able to create Brain Spa over the years, and through that offer mindfulness to teams, particularly in companies, but also in the public sector. For example, at Foreign Affairs Canada, where I used to work. And it was, the idea for Brain Spa was very much born out of my own experience in what I thought was the perfect career on paper, at a time in my life where I felt like I should be kind of at the top of my game, whatever that meant, and having the experience of, rather than feeling good about my life, actually feeling completely unhappy. And when I started to peel back the layers, realized that unhappiness was quite deep. Like, I couldn't remember a time when I had experienced happiness in quite a long time. And I felt very disconnected from myself. But the first signs of that were really stress and burnout, and, lacking the ability to work effectively, even at a job that I really believed in. So I wanted to, once I, did my inner work and connected back with mindfulness practices, and we can get into that a little bit later. Once I connected back with mindfulness practices, it just felt like a natural thing to then turn back around and offer it to the world, offer it back to communities, especially where I felt a really deep sense of allyship almost, right? So in workplaces where people are working on missions that are very important to them, and they need the inner resources to continue to operate in the systems that we all have to work with.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you're practically saying, like, giving a parallel story to mine, because it's almost the same story insofar as not being able to perform at work, as an English teacher. Even though I love it, I just wasn't able to deliver, in a way that was, satisfactory, or even, okay. And I knew that it was something that I needed to work on. And so reconnecting with myself, and all these phrases that you're using, they're exactly the path that I followed. And then from there, springs this this project, which is based on the aspiration to share the practice with everyone in the community that I belong to. So it's really interesting that, and so you gave a TED talk on this topic also, and so tell me a little bit more about your evolution, I suppose, with mindfulness. So how did that come about, and how do you practice? Do you practice on your own, or with a group? Or tell me a little bit more about your current practice.
I was going to say, because it's evolved so much, it changes depending on a number of things. So right at this particular phase of my life, my practice has become something that is actually pretty individual. I feel it's a great gift to be able to join. Actually, I mentioned to you prior to this call, I was just at a conference where it was amazing to be able to sit and share with a community of people. And I deeply, deeply love that. But for whatever reason, at this particular time, my practice has really been about personally carving out some time where I can do some focused breathing, really connect, like let myself connect with my inner landscape and generally check in. And that it doesn't, what's been interesting for me actually is to let go of a particular formula or format of meditation, just really see if I can be with that inner stillness and notice if it's a particularly turbulent time. I'm experiencing a lot of different changes in my life. I'm actually expecting a child, for example. So, and I notice sometimes that rather than inner stillness, I meet the turbulence. And then when I meet the turbulence, what I do is I just simply stay with that. And I reconnect with my breathing as the guide back to just being with that moment, whatever it looks like, just being with the inner landscape, whatever it looks like. So this has been a practice that has felt like home base for quite some time. But it's very different. So, I didn't give you a time frame, for example, like how long do I do that? Because it varies quite a bit. It could be a few minutes, quite literally a day, and it can be 20 minutes and it can be an hour. It really depends. I really meet myself wherever I need to be in that particular day. When I started picking up a regular practice again, when I had that experience of just being in the wrong, not experiencing my life the way I would have liked to and feeling a very deep unhappiness, I came back to mindfulness. And for me, it looked actually like discipline, meaning every single day coming to my practice, but it was very, very short. It was just bite-sized, 3 minutes a day. And eventually from there, I evolved it and had it, because I wanted to, it was enjoyable, have it take more time and more place in my life.
Wow. And so now these trainings that you give at companies, so these are face-to-face, right? So do you think that online workshops and face-to-face workshops, do you think they can be equally beneficial?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's interesting because I used to think of it as a challenging question. Is it on, like, what's better, online, in person? And I started realizing that organically through my own life experiences, I was having these amazing moments of sharing, I would say, deep connection with people online, right? Like, for example, you and I, we've only had the opportunity to meet virtually, and I already have developed, and I know we share this, deeper sense of kinship, deeper sense of relationship. A lot of the guidance and coaching that I will receive, that I participate in, is all online based. So I have favored in Brain Spa's work doing the workshops in person within companies. And it's not always possible to do it like that. We also operate in a world where teams are distributed. People are not always coming into the workplace at the same time. So we need to be flexible with that. I think one of the reasons that I've, really wanted to start with an in-person experience was to work with a team within their environment, within their office place, that is, and help them have a different of experience within that exact same office space as a team together, have different conversations in the same space that otherwise can be a little bit more tense, a little bit more conflictual, a little bit more high-paced. So that's been a really, really interesting dynamic. But I guess what I'm saying, if you can hear between the lines, is really there's, both experiences are really valuable, actually. And I think it depends what the important ingredient is, that there is some element of community, and that can happen as much online as it can in person.
Yeah, I agree with that. And in fact, maybe it's the missing link with all these wonderful apps that are out there, right? So, people have asked me for apps at work. So which ones do you recommend? And I do recommend a few, because I even use them myself. But then because they're recordings, and because there isn't this sense of community, then perhaps that's where the difference is between what you do and what I do, insofar as sharing the practice. Would you say that's at least one of the elements.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And similarly to you, I also use apps quite frequently, and I find them to be such helpful support, such helpful guidance. And I love to be able to go beyond that.
Right. Great. Well, sorry, and also congratulations. Sorry, I meant to say that straight
Thank
away.
you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, is there anything you'd like to add about the experience of mindfulness and the benefits that it brings to anybody who practices?
One thing that really strikes me is so the benefits are tremendous, and they're simple, meaning they can be just as banal as I reconnected with practice at the time when I was living in New York City, and one of the first ways I noticed was that people are always bumping into each other in the subway, and after a while of getting shoved left and right, you start to build like rough edges, and you hold your boundaries, and maybe get a little bit upset, or maybe a lot upset even before you enter a workplace. And so one of the first benefits I noticed was that those hard edges had softened again. Not to say that I was letting myself be pushed around left and right, but to say that I could really distinguish between allowing myself to become reactive in those moments. And I could start to discern very clearly, oh, this is just a very busy subway where people are, yes, jostling left and right, or, okay, no, this person really did interfere in my space, and I'd like to either move away and or make a statement towards that person, but without the reactivity, without the holding on to that grudge then for the rest of the day. So very, very small, but very important. On a bigger scale, it's the words don't convey the depth of the transformation that's happened through the practice. When I was sharing the feeling of not being able to be happy, and now I'll say, like, now I experience joy and happiness even in times of grief and sadness. To me, that's given my life back. That's given me my life back. The practice has also allowed me to live in a way that's much more aligned. I feel this groundedness and this solidness and this stability in the face of ever-changing challenges that come our way because of life. One of the things I wanted to just touch in on was also noticing the benefits of the practice when we stop practicing, right?
Yes.
So, this has happened in different places of my life, but it's also become very apparent where, things start to feel like there's a bit of a flow. There's some kind of an ease, even with the challenges. And there have been moments where I've stopped, I've disconnected with my practice, and all of a sudden it seems like the world is so harsh and so everybody's, out there to, get me or whatever it is. And I realize I can step back and be like, oh, actually nothing has changed. What's changed is I haven't meditated for a week, and the world has all of a sudden become much more challenging because of what I'm bringing forward.
That is absolutely fascinating. I mean, as I mentioned when we were speaking earlier, there was a period in my life when I wasn't practicing, but it wasn't a period of a week. It was, years that I didn't practice because I didn't make that connection. I mean, I didn't realize how the practice was connected to my day-to-day life. All I knew was that life was pretty good, but I didn't understand that it was because I was practicing. And then when I stopped, things started falling apart, but it was so little by little, it was so layer by thin layer that it didn't compute as, I need to go back to the practice. It wasn't until, complete meltdown that mindfulness came back into my life like something, like a possibility of rescuing myself, but even a remote possibility at that time. It was like the only thing that I could think of that could save me because of the experience that I had previously. But then the sitting itself became the knowledge. It was like, yes, well, of course, this is it. It's so simple, like you said. It's so simple and it's so obvious, and yet it isn't the case, right? It isn't that obvious, but until you do it, that's when things start to to fall in place. I mean, it's such a fascinating topic, and I could speak with you for hours about this topic. But if it's okay with you, I think we'll leave it there for the moment, and perhaps we'll speak again and record another interview. Is that okay?
Sounds beautiful.
So I'll
Sounds wonderful.
stop recording now, but don't go away.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yes. Thank you, Miriam.